Hello there, this is Randy. Welcome back to our channel, English with Sanjana. This is the second video in this series on conditionals. In my first video, I already covered all about Conditional Zero and Conditional Sentences Type 1. If you haven't watched my previous video on If Sentences Part 1, you may watch it first. Then you are well prepared to watch this video. You can use the above link. It will help you to find the video. Now, as we all know, there are four main types of conditional sentences. Zero conditional. They are used to express general truths. Conditional sentences type 1. They are real conditionals. They refer to situations which are likely to happen in the present or future. Conditional sentences type 2. They are unreal conditionals. They refer to imaginary situations which are unlikely to happen in the present or future. Conditional sentences type 3. They refer to unreal, imaginary situations in the past. They often express regrets or criticism about something that happened in the past. In this video on If Sentences Part 2, we will only be looking at conditional sentences type 2 and 3 in terms of the concept, formulation and usage. As I mentioned in the introduction in the first video, this two-part video means all about conditionals. But there are some specific cases and mixed conditionals. I will cover them in my next video on If Sentences Part 3, Mixed Conditionals. Further, you will learn how to avoid making common mistakes. There are lots of examples for you to practice. As usual, at the end of the lesson, there are some exercises to test whether you have understood all four main types of conditional sentences. Then join me in this complete review on conditionals. If you are ready, let's begin. If sentences part 2, conditional sentences type 2 and conditional sentences type 3. As we discussed already in the introduction, there are four main types of conditional sentences. Zero conditional. They express general truths. Conditional sentences type 1. They refer to situations which are likely to happen in the present or future. Conditional sentences type 2 and conditional sentences type 3. In my first video on If Sentences Part 1, I already discussed about zero conditional and conditional sentences type 1. In this video, we will be looking at conditional sentences type 2 and conditional sentences type 3. First, let's take a look at conditional sentences type 2. Conditional sentences type 2 refer to situations which are imaginary or unlikely to happen in the present or future. Look at this first example here.
If I want 10 million rupees.
If I want 10 million rupees is an imaginary situation which is unlikely or has a very low possibility to happen in the present or future.
What would you do if you won 10 million rupees?
Past tense in the if clause shows an imaginary situation which is unlikely to happen in the present or future. Let's examine this second example carefully.
If I took more exercise, I would feel better.
If I took more exercise is the imaginary condition that she applies. I would feel better is the imaginary result which is unlikely to happen in the present or future. Let's move on to formulation. If plus past simple in the if clause and would, could, might plus bare infinitive in the main clause. Example.
If I had more money, I would afford a bigger house.
If I had more money is the if clause which appears before the main clause. So it is important to use a comma before the main clause. When we switch the if clause and the main clause around, we don't use a comma.
I would afford a bigger house if I had more money.
No comma is used. Let's look at some more examples for would, could, and might in the main clause. First example.
They would be offended if I didn't go to the party.
Would be offended means it's possible that they would be offended. Second example.
If it stopped raining, we could go out.
Could go out means it's possible that we would be able to go out. Third example.
I'm not tired. If I went to bed now, I might not sleep.
Might not sleep means it's possible that I wouldn't sleep. Note: do not use when in conditional sentences except in zero conditional. An example. They would be upset when I didn't go to the party. This sentence belongs to conditional sentences type 2. We don't use when in conditional sentences. This sentence is incorrect. The correct version of the sentence is they would be upset if I didn't go to the party. Second example. What would you do when you were bitten by a snake? Here, this example refers to an imaginary situation which is unlikely to happen. When is not used in conditional sentences type 2. Therefore, it is corrected as what would you do if you were bitten by a snake? Note: we may use were instead of was for all persons in the if clause of conditional sentences type 2. An example.
If Situn was here, he would be very hungry.
It is better to use were instead of was for all persons in the if clause of conditional sentences type 2. Therefore, it could be written as if Situm were here, he would be very hungry. We use if I were you to give advice or to express an opinion.
If I were you, I wouldn't buy that car.
This could be regarded as a piece of advice or an opinion. Let's look at some example for conditional sentences type 2. First example. If he could do that alone, he wouldn't ask for your help. Second example. If I were you, I would buy the blue one. Third example. If I had enough money, I would buy a new sports car. Next example. If there was an election tomorrow, who would you vote for? Last example. If you were in my position, what would you do? That's all for conditional sentences type 2. Now, let's move on to conditional sentences type 3. Conditional sentences type 3 refer to unreal and imaginary situations in the past. They often express criticism or regret about something that happened in the past, but it would have been better if it hadn't happened. Study this example situation. Last month, Linuka was in hospital for a few days. Dhananjana didn't know this, so she didn't go to visit him. They met a few days ago. Dhananjana said to Linuka,
If I had known you were in hospital, I would have gone to see you.
This example expresses regret. It would have been better if she had known he was in hospital. Then she would have gone to see him. This is unreal and an imagined situation which refers to something that happened in the past. Now it's time to look at the formulation. If plus past perfect in the if clause, would, could, and might plus perfect infinitive in the main clause. An example.
If I had seen him, I would have spoken to him.
Had seen in the if clause is in the past perfect tense. Have spoken to in the main clause is the perfect infinitive which comes after would. Second example. If we had been more careful, we wouldn't have had an accident. Third example. If you had told them the truth, you wouldn't have got into trouble. Now we can have a look at some examples for conditional sentences type 3. If we had traveled together, we would have saved money. If I had gone to the party last night, I would have met lots of people. If I had had your number, I would have called you. If Parami had known that you were coming, she wouldn't have left. If you had left without permission, you would have got into serious trouble. That's all for conditional sentences type 2 and type 3. I have prepared some exercises to evaluate whether you have understood the lesson. First activity. State whether the following conditional sentences are real or unreal. Question number 1. If we had done the work together, we would have saved time. Now pause the video and write the answer. Unreal situation. If you are scared of insects, don't go into that room. Real situation. Where would you choose if you could live anywhere in the world? Unreal situation. You would have known the answer if you had read the book. Unreal situation. You will have to take a taxi home if you want to leave now. Real situation. Activity 2. For each situation, write a sentence beginning with if. All the sentences you write will be unreal conditionals. First one is done for you. I wasn't hungry, so I didn't eat anything. In considering this situation, if I had been hungry, I would have eaten something. Second situation. The accident happened because the road was icy. Now pause the video and write the answer. If the road hadn't been icy, the accident wouldn't have happened. Third situation. I was able to buy the car only because Sethmi lent me the money. If Sethmi hadn't lent me the money, I wouldn't have been able to buy the car. Fourth situation. I didn't get a taxi because I didn't have any money. If I had had some money, I would have got a taxi. Fifth situation. Sanasha wasn't injured in the crash because she was wearing a seat belt. If Sanasha hadn't been wearing a seat belt, she would have been injured in the crash. Sixth situation. You didn't have any breakfast. That's why you are hungry now. If you had some breakfast, you wouldn't be hungry now. Activity 3. State whether the following sentences belong to conditional sentences type 1, type 2, type 3 or 0 conditionals. First question. If Bob had been honest, he would have returned the money. This sentence belongs to conditional sentences type 3. Second question. The video pauses if you press this button. 0 conditional. Third question. You would be surprised if I told you how much this cost. Conditional sentences type 2. Fourth question. If Sam continues to work hard, he should pass the exams easily. Conditional sentences type 1. Fifth question. Steve would have been attacked if I hadn't come along. Conditional sentences type 3. That is the end of the lesson on conditionals. In my next video, I will cover specific cases and mixed conditionals. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you understood the lesson. If you find this video useful and worth sharing, subscribe to our channel and share the video with others. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. I will talk to you there. Bye for now. I look forward to seeing you in my next video.